Yo, G-Nation, and welcome back to another Wildly Familiar. I'm your host, Gage. You know who it is already. I just said my name, and we're going to have a great show. We have Dave Capdevielle coming on the scene. I've known this guy for years. He is a writer, he is a horror movie enthusiast, and he's a swell friend. He's working on a pilot called Flaw, and the animation is online soon. So buckle in and let's get rolling. Bucko.
You ever been to a concert where everyone is rocking out? And you turn to your homie and you begin to shout. You go, ah, this band is great. And they go, ah, I know. Feels good to be wildly familiar. Wildly familiar. Oh, yeah.
Hello, Dave Capdevielle, and welcome to Wildly Familiar.
Oh my gosh, the enthusiasm's been stepped up to a million.
No. It's not like I was monotonely instructing you on how this interview will unfold. I've been this high energy the whole time.
It's not like you've been verbally making me go to sleep or anything for the last 10 minutes.
More like the last 6 years, because we've known each other for quite some time.
What a way to lead in.
Yeah, Dave, something that I've always wanted to ask you is that if you were to take over the world, you're like the dictator of Earth.
Oh wow.
And I know it's a great gig.
I just
and
pulled out a weapon and was like, "Hey, give me everything."
Pulled out a lead pipe and say, "Listen here, mister, turn over the keys or else you're going to get a wallop."
A smack right on the forehead and just. But yeah, so you want to know my big plan?
I do. Not your big plan. Let's say you've executed your big plan, because you don't want to give that away on camera, right?
No, I mean it's already been put into fruition anyway.
Cool. The cogs are already turning.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you have these droves of henchmen going around, how will we know that they are the henchmen of Dave Capdevielle and they should be feared? Are they going to have a certain hairstyle, or are they going to have a similar jacket?
I
What's
think
up?
that my plan is to take the head of every hired goon that I bring on and dip it in some kind of acid so that they just have skulls for heads.
Oh, like a Ghost Rider situation.
Exactly, except without the Nicolas Cage flaming ability. They'd just be a bunch of skeletal freaks running around, and you'll be like, hey, I know who to fear when I see their eyeless joints.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's pretty straightforward. I don't think a lot of people can replicate the bear skull.
That one right there, one of my minions is right there, actually. If you look where I'm pointing on this camera, that you can totally see and is not post-edited or anything.
No, of course not. I see exactly what you're talking about right there.
You see exactly how many fingers I'm holding up. You would know that immediately.
Yeah, you have enough fingers. Let me just say that.
Exactly.
And what's your skeleton's name? It's not Steve, right? Steve was the old one that...
Oh, Steve was, when I hit, I think it was 20,000 Twitter followers. I made a promise that I would hit him with a car. And so we just went to this abandoned middle school parking lot by our house, and we just threw Steve, the plastic skeleton, in front of my car, and he snapped in half.
Are you saying he did not survive that?
I'm saying no, he is now just because he has been halved.
He is more deceased than he already was.
That is, oh god, I forgot the name of my own characters. That's pretty bad. Karl with a K. That's what it was.
Fantastic. Much like my favorite person, Karl from Jimmy Neutron.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say Karl the ice cream place, but that's a very niche place that only 3 people in Virginia know. I think I made the right call by going with Karl Weiser.
Shout out to everybody who knows Karl's ice cream. You'll get nothing for that, but you can pat yourself on the back.
You have the knowledge of knowing you're better than everyone else.
That's right. That's right.
But Dave, I haven't properly introduced you earlier. You're more of a, how would you put it? I would say like horror enthusiast, creative titan, a writer of sorts. And
Dude, I honestly don't even know anymore. I'm joking, but like, I've spent like the last couple weeks like trying to like fully define like and like make a proper like Twitter bio recently to be like kind of sum up what you do. I'm at a loss. I don't know. I just do what I want. and that's like, I'm not complaining. It's just like I kind of do what I want. But like, I'm at this point where it's like, I do a lot of different things, but I also don't want to brag about all the stuff I do. You know what I mean?
yeah, you want to be a little humble to an extent.
So, I don't know. I help create animated shows. I talk about and educate about horror movies. I, do filmmaking, music, some voice acting stuff. I don't know. I just kind of do whatever.
You're a jack of all trades.
I made a joke where I said jack-o'-lantern of some trades. That's what the joke I made.
That's not quite an A to B joke. That's an A to B to C and then back to B joke.
It's a joke only people who eat Karl's ice cream would get.
Hey. Like, I know we joke a lot here, but don't you talk about Karl's ice cream in a negative way. That's
dogging those Karl's dairy enthusiasts.
It's a national landmark in Fredericksburg, Virginia, you fool.
Is that a real place?
Yes, it is. Jimmy, put up Karl's ice cream.
There you go.
National landmark, I tell you.
Well, how are you, Gage? You've been talking about me this whole time.
Yeah, it's an interview with you, so we're going to tend to be on that subject a while. But I'm doing fantastic.
I feel weird when people talk about me. It's got to be.
I'm the same way.
Be a two-way street.
I guess I have a similar problem to you. If I can drop the wildly familiar charade for a second.
Okay, yeah.
Is that I have a hard time defining myself, and I think I just kind of end back on creator. Like, I make stuff. When people from my hometown are like, "Oh, what are you doing in the big city?" I go, same thing I've been doing since high school.
Walking those red carpets?
Walking those red carpets? Seeing Jennifer Lopez?
Are you scraping the shit off of the Hollywood stars?
But yeah, no, they're like, "What are you doing?" I say, "Making silly videos, same as I've been doing for the past 10 years.
I usually go the route of either entertainer or like, I do like to use filmmaker a lot just because that's kind of what my background is in, but I don't know.
If you have an eyeball and you're not a bare skull, you might have seen Dave's other projects.
And you've either been like, wow, that was okay, or this is terrible, and you've moved on with your life.
I'm gonna push back a little bit on that because you've done a lot of great things, man. Like, we met each other about like 6 years ago now.
It's been it has been that long, which is crazy.
Yeah, since like 2016. You were doing a podcast called Recapitate.
We were actually both simultaneously doing podcasts because you were doing Almost Adults and I was doing Recapitate. Which mine was, it was talking about horror movies like in a comedic way with different like internet personalities, and you were just kind of shooting the shit with other internet folks on Almost Adults.
Not much has changed on my end of things.
Well, I think you got a better setup with this show going on.
Well, thank you.
So
on paper, Almost Adults is still going. It's still got a couple more episodes left before I officially give it the axe.
Oh man, you're gonna take it out behind the dumpsters and get rid of it?
No, it's more like an old dog that I just kind of keep around, and then every once in a while I poke it and it craps all over the floor.
Well, it's funny though, because like looking back at that time period, like you said, 6 years ago, I don't know. It was weird because like, really didn't feel like any of this stuff that we do was like a responsibility other than like, it's like, oh, I'm doing this because I want to do this and it's my dream. And now that we're like, flash forward later, like this is like the thing we have to do.
I think that's more of a your situation kind of thing than my thing. Cause I'll be honest, I don't make like good income through these videos. I do these videos because I like them.
I just make enough to pay my bills.
See, I don't even make that. You're living the dream, man.
Woohoo!
It does feel more like a responsibility nowadays, and for me personally, if I don't keep that in check on like a creative level, I feel like I lose myself a little bit.
Yeah.
And kind of the day-to-day mundane activities going on.
Also, we're not in our early 20s anymore, we're in our late 20s. So
yeah, we're not the new kids on the block anymore.
Also, outlook on life is just kind of different at this point, you know.
I would be foolish to say no.
You would be. I think so, because just experiences change you. They just everybody. And if it doesn't, then you're kind of up shit's creek.
I feel like I don't want to say I'm more jaded. I definitely am, but I don't want to say that.
It's weird because like I kind of agree with you, where it's like I feel like I'm more jaded on some things, but then other things I feel like I'm way less cynical about. Like it you know what it is? I think it's like when it comes to business and stuff, I'm probably more cynical. But when it comes to just like creativity and enjoyment of things, I'm kind of more open and wholesome as time has gone on. Probably because it's kind of the combination of just as you get older, you care less. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. Like things that like dramatically mattered to you are just like, all right, whatever. People copy other people's content or whatever.
Well, also like at a certain point, like you're like, screw it. This is who I am, unapologetically. Unless you're like, running over monkeys with your car or something. It's like, at a certain point you accept, like, this is who I am. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. And, you deal with it because that's life.
I agree with that. Actually, that leads sort of into my next question is, what is the worst creative advice that you've ever been given? Now that we're 6 years older and a lot more jaded.
Gosh, the worst advice?
The worst advice. If someone's like, hey, you know what's great? If you throw away your computer, that will get you to work more.
That'll get you. Listen, those things aren't going to last. They're going out. We're going back to pen and paper, baby.
Pages are the future.
That's right. Dippin' Dots is going to be served at Karl's Ice Cream. That's the future.
Hell yeah.
Because, it's funny. I haven't really gotten a lot of advice, more or less, just kind of like seen what other people have done and try to like figure out, like, learn from their mistakes or emulate what they didn't screw up. I would say though, like, something really dumb is I will say this is one. Don't make things just to try to get popular. That there are people out there who their goal is just like, oh, I'm going to become a YouTuber, or I'm going to become a filmmaker just so I can get a big audience or not have to work anymore. No, you got to do it because you want to do it. And you got to recognize the fact that you're going to be extremely lucky if you break through, and you cross your fingers hoping other people are interested. So there are a lot of people who unfortunately have this mindset where they're like, I'm going to do this just because, I want to be famous or whatever. And no, you do this stuff and you stick with it because you want to do it. That's what I would say.
Honestly, the older I've gotten, the more foreign the concept of like, do YouTube because you're going to get popular, the less that makes sense to me as I get older. And because I'm like, I got bills to pay, I gotta get health insurance. If I'm doing YouTube, I'm gonna make the stuff I want to make. So I don't have time to pander to Fortnite. Fuck.
It's because like I see people who like they will just make the same content over and over again for years just because they know it like gets them views, and like it's like, okay, I get it, but also like, why even do something creative if you're never gonna try to grow or change or use that creativity?
Yeah. Also, real quick, I want to apologize to all the Fortnite fans out there. I did not mean to rag on them so much.
Fortnite has like one of the coolest looking Green Goblin designs ever right now.
Oh yeah. I've seen that. It's like a combination of the Sam Raimi one and the comic book ones.
Pretty dope.
So no hate to that's our Fortnite peace offering that we give to you today.
But he's not sponsored by Fortnite either.
No. I'm definitely not sponsored by Epic Games, which brings you Fortnite, which updates content on a monthly basis.
Not very epic.
Exactly, man. So what other sort of mediums of media would you like to tackle in the future? You've already done some podcasts. You've done animation. You've written for animation, I should clarify. Is there anything that you want to tackle in the future? Like, would you like to make a Broadway play, or would you like to make a short film?
Yeah, I have a kind of a list where, like, I'm one of those people who I want to do one project at least from every medium. For example, with Far-Fetched, I'm a co-creator of that animated show. I wrote and did some direction for Has Been Hotel. I've done podcasts. I've done some short film stuff, some music stuff. But my thing is, I want to do a full, like, Broadway play I'd like to write. I'd like to make my next big one. I'd like to do within the next 5 years is to make a full-length horror movie, live action.
Sounds fantastic.
I don't know. I just kind of want to do something in every little kind of medium if I can, just to have a diverse palette.
Yeah, it reminds me of the South Park guys, because they do like musical movies, or they've done the Broadway play. They're doing a TV show. Those guys just have a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah, I think that just comes from having, like, a lot of diverse interests, and not just like. And this is no, like, hey, listen. There are wonderful artists who, like, they just do, like, animation, or they just do music, you know, and that's fantastic, like, because you're good. I'm just one of those people who's like, my interests are kind of different enough that I want to, like, branch out. So.
Yeah, you're going into the video essay territory too, aren't you?
I am. You know, it's funny you brought up Recapitate earlier, where we met, because it's funny. It's really funny timing. You're doing this because that was the way we met 6 years ago, and now I'm bringing that brand back in a whole new way. That same Recapitate brand, because that name was just too good. I didn't want to get rid of it. So, but I'm bringing it back from just a funny podcast talking about horror movies to I'm doing kind of a whole sort of, like, channel focused on, like, fun educational videos on retro horror and Halloween stuff I love, with a lot of editing and stuff. Like I joke that it's like Defunct Land meets Dead Meat, you know, which are both channels that I love, but I'm gonna do my own thing, obviously. But yeah, I'm just kind of, like, on the side of, you know, making Far-Fetched, the series with Ashley. I'm like, you know, I kind of want to dive back into this because I've always wanted an outlet besides just, like, Twitter or a podcast to talk about all the weird, like, horror knowledge that I have that no one cares about, but you know what, I want to do it. So kind of going back into that popular thing, you know?
Yeah, that's honestly, that's how I feel about doing the my video essays, the Gauge Your Interest on my channel, where I'm like, oh, have you read the Captain Underpants books? Well, if you read them, you'll see this common theme. Like, I can't talk to people at a bar about that. I gotta record a video and edit it properly so it's presentable and sane to
hey,
to
girl,
talk
have
about
you ever
that.
heard about Professor Poopy Pants?
Professor Pippy P Poopy Pants,
famously voiced by Nick Kroll in the animated feature.
What's your opinion about Nick Kroll?
About just Nick Kroll?
Just Nick Kroll in general.
I don't know. He's fine, I guess. I'm not really a fan, but I don't dislike him. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, you're almost, like, indifferent.
He's been in stuff I like. He's been in stuff I don't like. You know, I'm completely indifferent to the existence of Nicholas Kroll.
Shout out to Nick Kroll, man.
Shout out to Nick Kroll. We know you're listening. We know you're a Fortnite player. We know you eat Karl's ice cream.
He keeps trying to cast us in Big Mouth, and we're just like, no.
Knocking down the door, begging Gage and Dave, please Please open your mouth wide enough for my show.
I really respect your love of horror because it kind of bleeds into all your creative projects that you've done, even when they're not specifically like a horror movie, because there are aspects of that you kind of pick out and then you put into whatever project, whether has been or far-fetched, and it's really cool to see that medium bleed into there. It reminds me of that Dr. Octopus surgery scene in the original Spider-Man 2.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie. Yeah, I think it's just because that genre to me, horror, just like kind of like spooky atmosphere, is just so I don't know. I just love it enough, and I've talked about how the reasons why like I love the blending of horror and comedy so much is because they're both genres that elicit like a specific reaction. So combining them together is kind of easy in that way.
Dave, you're Jimmy has to pull up this clip, but I said the exact same thing 6 years ago when you were on the podcast. I did. I'm like, comedy and horror are parallels to each other because of that timing.
Oh my gosh. You can remember things you said 6 years ago. I can't remember things I said 6 minutes ago.
No, I just remember that podcast in particular because we didn't really we had like Twitter DMs or whatever, but we didn't really like talk face to face until that podcast. And we found out that we had similar philosophies in that way.
I don't know. Like I said, just that kind of that the reactions they elicit are. It's not like, you know, other mediums where they're just kind of like, you know, okay, like I feel like, oh, this is cute, like a romantic comedy or whatever. No, you're like, you're trying to be spooked or you're trying to get a giggle, you know, and combining those together is fun.
It's a similar sense of suspense that you have leading up to a punchline and leading up to a scare.
Exactly.
I'm trying not to be too nostalgic here, but I guess that's sort of my excuse for these April Fool's videos is to like talk to people that I've known for a long time and be like, remember when we used to the good old days where we talked in podcasts more and we didn't have to worry about hurting as many people's feelings?
I know.
Now we hurt people's feelings on the reg.
I hurt people's feelings by existing. It's great.
Dave, I know we're joking here, but come on. Give a little self-care, self-worth.
I'm drinking purified drinking water, all right?
What is purified drinking water? Do you just mean water?
No, it's Niagara purified drinking water, established 1963. Get a shot of that, Jimmy, because that's the real sponsor of the podcast right there.
Yeah, I guess sort of the final question that we have. Man, this has gone by really fast, but what do you think the biggest difference is from 6 years ago to now on your general outlook of life and why you create?
I mean, we kind of stumbled on it, but like I think overall it really is just like now I'm at a point where like as opposed to back then trying to do kind of anything at all, you know, to, you know, just for fun or to kind of get some kind of reaction. And now it's just like, just kind of wanting to do what I want. And that feels a lot better. And also just like appreciating other people's work. Because when you're younger, I feel like you view things more as a competition in the way where you're like, oh, you know, I got to get in on the game too. So everybody else is like, you know, look out, here I come. And now it's just like, I appreciate so many other people's like independent works and encourage them and like, you know, try to see them be successful. Because I know what it's like for nobody to give two shits about you. And I don't want other people to have that feeling. So
yeah, I feel like a big flaw of mine is being envious of people. It's easy to look at whoever the heck and be like, oh, they have this video out. I was going to do a video on this, and they did it much better. It's very easy for me to get jealous. Just long way of saying that. That's the long way of saying that.
I understand that because there is a sense of like you want to have that sense of pride of being like, oh, I'm the first one to do this, or I did it like this. But you also have to recognize that, number one, there's only so many things to talk about on this rock we live on. And number two, it's just like, fortune favors, it's random. You know what I mean?
Fortune favors the random. You're right.
I think Shakespeare said that.
But yeah, no, I have a bad problem with getting like envious of people, and I'm working on that. And I'm definitely better than I was 6 years ago about it. I'm definitely more gung ho about like, okay, I'm gonna do something on Beautiful Joe, and no one can stop me. If someone has a better Beautiful Joe video, whatever, I'm just gonna make my own.
You have to recognize
it's something that I feel like I had to acknowledge.
Yeah, because you have to recognize
while.
too is that like that just means other people are interested in the same thing you are.
It's really nice sometimes just to compare and contrast videos when someone's like, oh, hey, I didn't know that this took place in the development of the game. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that this mode was in the game. As you get older, you learn to appreciate different aspects of different mediums, dare I say.
You really do. Like, I noticed one thing, and maybe you share the same sentiment, because I'm a big movie guy, but I've noticed myself, I almost like, as a form of stress relief, I tend to watch like behind the scenes of and making of movies more than movies themselves now. And I think that's just to kind of, one, because it's interesting, and two, also to appreciate what goes into the making of projects like these.
Yeah, it's very, very I don't want to use the word cathartic, but it is kind of cathartic to see kind of just normal people bringing it to life, and them kind of dropping their persona and just chatting about how exactly they made this scene.
It's also invigorating for you if you feel kind of burnt out as well, because then you're like, man, like these people are just like me, like small independent creators, just kind of like doing these things to make it work, and it kind of inspires you a little
100%.
bit.
Hang on. Let me ask. This is a question I just thought of. But do you see traits that you had about 6 years ago in like the younger generation of the internet people around us?
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good question, because I do see that. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, because I think part of growing up is just, trying and failing and learning from your mistakes, right? I think that's important. But I do see things like people who just have the stars in their eyes when they're at a young age, which I think is fine. It's like, when you're younger, like and you still have like dreams. I'm joking, but you know what I mean, where it's like when I moved out to LA when I was like 22, 23, I was still like, wow, Hollywood, and now I'm 28 and I'm like, yeah, fuck that place. So like I it's just like, I think it's more or less of I don't want people, we talked about being jaded. I don't want people to become jaded, but I want them, through learning and making mistakes, to understand reality more.
Right. You want them to be sort of more aware of the actual world around them.
Exactly. Because what? As much as I joke, I don't like to think that the world is just a cold, heartless place. I do enjoy, I love art, I love music, film. I do believe there's some magic in the world, even at the age I am now, but you also have to be realistic and realize it's not going to give you everything, just because you exist.
Oh, for sure. And just because you have a strong desire to do so.
Exactly.
I feel like something that's pitched a lot in, probably a lot of American media, actually, just overall, is that if you really, really want something, you'll get it. And
they don't take luck into account for that at all, and that does piss me off as well.
Right, and even to some extent, they don't put like work into that equation. They're just like,
no. I think I was gonna say what you're saying, where it's like, yeah, no, they're just like, oh, just because you have the drive for something doesn't mean you actually do the driving.
Oh, yeah, for sure. When people are like, oh, I really, really want this. And then they just kind of sit down and be like, any day now. Not to that extent, but to the extent where they're like, oh, if I'm around, what's the best way to phrase this?
There are people, I think, and say I'm wrong if I'm wrong, but I think what you're trying to get at is, like, you feel like if you're around certain people who have kind of quote-unquote made it, then you're automatically going to be lumped into that too without having to lift a finger. And that's a bad mindset to have.
I was talking about this too with a friend the other day, and it's like a lot of people in sort of our line of work get accused of like just the easiest way to put it. I call it ladder climbing. The more common phrase is clout chasing. But a lot of you get a lot of accusations for that. At least on my end. I'm not sure about you.
I want to go back to one of your questions. And
yes, sir. Go ahead.
Because you asked about what is something from like 6 years ago that is different. That is because I think you're the exact same way because you've done this long enough like me. It is so easy to spot people who are like clout chasers and ladder climbers now than it was back then.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's just like the new generation being a little more upfront or just us getting a better eye for it.
It's people our age too, I recognize it in.
Oh, really?
So it's, well, not all of them, obviously. But
yeah,
like,
no, of course not.
But no, it's kind of like as I've gotten older, I've been like, you really haven't done anything. Like, you know what I mean? And I don't know. Like, this might be the harshest thing I'll say in this podcast, but like, I don't really respect people who have egos but nothing to back it with.
That's not harsh at all. That's just true.
That's extremely common in our creative community.
I'm trying to think of like the tamest thing. Someone like makes a TikTok of them dancing, and the algorithm just picks it up, and they just coast by that the whole time. Something along those lines is really infuriating to see.
You know what's a great example is that whenever somebody makes like a tweet that goes quote unquote viral, and they have to follow it up with like, check this out, or buy my product, or check me out here. If I ever have a tweet that like blows up for some reason, I just mute it and move on. Because I'm just like, okay.
That's probably a good philosophy to have. I don't like to disable that because I like to see the numbers go up, and the dopamine of my brain just gives me little squirts, and it gets me through the day.
I mean, dopamine's a powerful drug, but you can't rely solely on it.
Jimmy, put that Danny Elfman thing, the Danny Elfman PSA, where he's like, I got the high. It's a drug that is for free.
Hi, my name is Danny Elfman, and I'm from the group Oingo Boingo. Often people come up to me after a show, and they say, what kind of drugs do you use up there, man? It must be pretty strong. And I go, you're absolutely right. I'd like to share that with you now because the drug is a very, very powerful one. Best of all, it's non-addictive, it won't kill you, and it's free. It's called adrenaline. You can use it too. You know where you get it? Right here. Try it. It's the only safe one.
I remember you showed me that a couple years ago.
It's a great PSA, and it's true.
Don't forget about the Pee Wee Herman crack cocaine piece.
This is crack. Actually, that's a PSA that I brought up on the very first episode of Mildly Familiar. We're just having callbacks all over the place.
It's just, man, put on your nostalgia glasses, folks.
We'll remember it so you do not have to.
Oh, God. Somebody brought up to me the other day when I was streaming, because I was talking about bringing Recapitate back, right? They brought, like, are you going to bring back where it's good to hear evil? And I was just like, fuck off. It was such a bad catchphrase.
I totally forgot about that catchphrase.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being on the podcast, Dave.
Yeah, no problem. Now that I've outed myself as a creative doofus.
No, well, I actually, just to touch on that real quick. I mean, it goes back to what I was saying about, like, I'm just making silly videos. I feel like a lot of I'll just speak for myself personally. A lot of what I've done, a lot of the good fortune that I've had has been dumb luck. I will harp on that because I just happen to be, I will be at the right place at the right time, talking to the right person, and it just kind of pans out somewhat well.
Never discredit the hard work you've put in. Don't, because you deserve to say, I put in a lot of hard work. But also, as long as you keep in the back of your head, like, I'm very lucky and very fortunate where I am, then you won't become an egotistical butthole.
I did want to just close this off with saying luck is definitely a factor, but I'd like to think people notice when you work your butt off a little bit, even if it's not producing the results that you want. I think people will see that you're always working, at least in my case.
No, I would agree, because people do recognize passion, and people can tell. You know, people as a collective are pretty dumb, but they can tell when somebody is passionate about something, and they will normally encourage that.
So if you're passionate about something, get on out there and do it. And thanks for being with me and Dave Capdevielle, being wildly familiar. It's where evil lives. That's the catchphrase, right?
And humor dies. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this. More Mildly Familiar is on the way. And boy, oh boy, I'm excited to do another Gauge Your Interest. Ooh, did I say Gauge Your Interest? Probably shouldn't have. Haha, coming soon. Hee hee. Subscribe.